Good afternoon, everyone. It is time for the Speaker Insight Facebook Live. My name is Helena.
And I'm Kelly.
And we are Speaker Insight, where we help speakers, authors, and coaches to build a portfolio business on your terms. And we're also the founders of the Connection Hub. Kelly's going to pop the link in. It's a Facebook group with over 10,000 members who are all sharing opportunities. They're creating connections with professionals like speaker agents, publishers, web designers, and really just supporting each other in building their speaker, author, coach businesses.
Yeah, so we'd love to have you in there. And we know many of you join us live every Tuesday at 1 o'clock when we go live and do these trainings. So whether you're watching us live, say hello, or whether you're watching us on the replay, do a hashtag replay. I know some of you are saying, hey, you're coming in at the moment. And also we'd love to know where you're watching from in the world, whether that's a country or a place or wherever. We love to know our international audience and find out where you're watching from today. So put that in the comments for us. And if you're a couple of people there are watching via the in the group, I think you're watching in Changemaker in the Connection Hub. So just click the StreamYard link to actually give permission so we can see your name, because we've got at the moment Facebook users saying hi, like, and apparently someone's saying there's an echo on your end, Helena. So
okay,
of your mic.
I will hold this here, and we will go from there. You just let me know whether it's working any better.
Yeah, give us a thumbs up, guys.
Which is really good. So here's the thing. We always ask you what's new and exciting, what's actually happening in your business, because we like to kick off with not just us telling you some juicy and wonderful information, but some, are you still not able to hear us all that well?
No, Rishi's saying that's better, whatever you've just done.
Okay, great. In which case, we'll just go from there. So we always kick off with what's the buzz in your business, and so tell us what's actually going on. What's exciting for you? What's an invitation that you've got? What's something that is inspiring you? Maybe it's something that you did or something that you are about to do. So tell us what's.
I can see people like Rishi and Marianne and Jane, all those people here watching. We'd love to know what's going on in your business while we share our buzz. Yes. So actually, I posted in the Connection Hub today, if you've seen it, that I was actually quite chuffed that I got an article featured in Motivate magazine, thanks to Sharon Brown, who's a member of the Connection Hub. Do check her out. Motivate magazine is a great place for you to connect with people that want to be inspired. So especially if you're a coach, it's a magazine that I would definitely recommend that you check out and join her group. She also runs a speaker group in there as well, which is about connecting speakers to gigs. So Sharon Brown, big shout out to you, lovely. And we also had a photo shoot at the weekend. We had a lovely weather for it with our resident photographer, Amanda Clark, who always does our photos and again does a lot of the photos for members of the Changemaker Central and the Connection Hub. So she's one of those people that even if you don't like pictures of yourself, or even if you don't like being in front of the camera, she just makes it so fun, so natural. She gets great shots, and she's just a wonderful person to have around. So we're doing it. Our buzz is actually a bit of shout out to a couple of people, isn't it?
I was just going to say, how very typical of us. It's actually what we do. So let's dive into today's. Hang on a second. I'm just going to say this because Tally's news is great. I've been asked to speak in a Dutch radio station tonight with Dr. Barry Prezant, a leading authority in the field of autism. Very nervous, and also very well done. And remember, just breathe through it. And the way your passion always comes across for your subject. So well done, you.
And Tally, we know what a god you are in your world. So just focus on who you're serving, and then that's what takes the fear away, because you're doing a great job. And Jacqueline's also saying the buzz in her business. She's really enjoying the growth of her business. My goodness, don't we see that with you in Changemaker Central? So we're proud of you.
Yeah, we really, really are. So let's get to it. We love to teach you something, and today we're talking all about active listening. And it's a concept that, it's a huge thing. This could be a pages and pages long one, but it's really quite incredible. Sorry, I'm enjoying Rishi's enthusiasm. He has constructed a user journey, and he has a framework. Which is delicious. in this way. So I'm going to go back to this. Active listening as a concept, honestly, we could come at it from all sorts of angles. But what we're going to do today is really just show you a couple of ways that you can use active listening in your business. Because it's one of those things that, whilst it's a skill that many speakers, authors, and coaches have, it's one that I think many of you forget to use. So we're doing this as a reminder and potentially also oh, I hadn't thought about using it in that way, kind of mind jog for you. So one of those ways is definitely to use active listening in your market research on your ideal client avatar. And the other is, of course, when you want to build rapport in your communication style, whether that's during your coaching or consulting, and or in the whole of that user journey, as Rishi's just pointed out, around the different stages that you can use active listening. So we're going to highlight some of those for you as well.
Yeah, we'll start with the how you can use it to basically learn more about your ideal avatar, and also how you can create lead magnets, whether it's the social media posts, whether it's the fact that you're developing a product. Basically, this is the way to find out that what does your ideal client really want, rather than what you think that they should need, right? And bless Rishi, I'm surprised he's even on this live, because with us coaching him over the last month or so in Changemaker, we've been telling him to do active listening for market research. And it's something that he's really been not resistant, but it's not his ideal thing for him to do. But as a result, he's built this beautiful user journey and framework around exactly what his ideal client wants. So one of the things, and this will be what Rishi has been doing in the last month, but it's an example for what you can do, right? This is his favorite topic in the whole world. And that's a lie. So what we want to do is we want to, first of all, if you don't know who your ideal avatar is, then basically go to watch any of the lives that we've done in the guides around discovering who it is and all the ways to find them and that type of thing. Then we need to actually hang out where your ideal client is hanging out, so we can be active listening. Okay, it's basically something that I would say it's your job to dedicate time to actually be noting and recording on a consistent basis what your ideal client is asking for and talking about, because they are the ones that dictate all these things, the lead magnets, the contents, the products, and you're responding to their needs rather than forcing down their neck what you think they should have, when they're like, that's not what I'm looking for. And that's where you have a real problem in selling your product. So we want you to choose the places, and we'll give you some examples in a minute of where you can hang out to listen. But these are the things to note for. So get pen and paper out if you haven't already.
Oh, for sure.
These are sort of the top things to be listening and noting on a regular basis. You might put aside, 5 minutes every day or half an hour every day to be jotting these things down. Maybe it's the time when you're doing engaging in Facebook groups and you're being more visible and you're being more active. You're also listening as well as giving. So I want you to note down on a spreadsheet, on a bit of paper, in a journal, whatever it might be. You might have if you're a Changemaker Essential member, you might have in our sexy little journal, you might have a page where you're actually keeping all the notes of this. Yeah. What I want you to know are, what are the common themes and frequently asked questions that are coming up from your ideal client, right? So if it's, for example, you'll start to see that you've got these 10 questions that are commonly asked. This is what we know what our most converting lead magnets are, which are, what's the best CRM system to use? Literally, I can guarantee I'm going to see that at least 3 times a day in the groups that I'm in. Where do I find speaking gigs? How do I schedule content? What's the best app to schedule content? These are the things that we can see all the time. So I would have a spreadsheet. We have a spreadsheet that we basically list all these things down, and especially when new ones are coming up. And I would highly recommend that you even have a tally against that.
For sure.
So if you were reviewing this every quarter, every month, and you say, how to choose a CRM system came up 76 times this month, I think we should do some content around that, Helena, right?
For sure, right?
This is like, let's provide a solution to a need that's out there. And most of the time, if you go to the free resources page on our speakerinsight.com, you'll see all of our lead magnets, and they have been created as a result of the frequently asked questions that speakers, authors, and coaches we see online all the time. So that's the first thing, is learn what they're asking and respond. The second thing is to actually really note the language that people are using, right? So even though in this world, in the Connection Hub, we talk a lot about avatar, a lot of people would never use that language outside of this forum if they were just hanging out in a women entrepreneurs group or something, because it's not a natural word for people to say. So even though when you're training and you're educating people, you can say that, what you might be talking about when you're discussing it in other people's groups is like, who's your ideal client? You forget the avatar bit, just who's your ideal client, or, who's the one person that you'd love to work with. And so it's not just about the terminology that they're using so that they feel familiar with it. It's also the emotion. How are they describing their situation? How are they describing how they're feeling? Would they use frustrated rather than stuck? And these are the things to know, because when you're writing your copy, if you can mirror what they're saying, it creates this sense of familiarity and connection between you both.
Yeah, there's something about supporting someone in relating to you by using the language that you're using.
Yeah, and it's not just the language I want you to pick up on. It's also it's the situations and scenarios. Yeah. So if they're talking about, and this is, when you really know your avatar, if you're saying that your client will shop at Asda and Morrison, but in your ideal client, that's their local shop, that's their budget, that's their preference, that's, whatever reason it is, that's what most of your avatar will say is their local supermarket or their supermarket of choice. And then your case study or your scenario starts talking about Waitrose, then you can actually turn your client off going, I don't do Waitrose because it's just full of people who have got first world problems because they've run out of pomegranate seeds or whatever, right? So you might turn those people off in your audience. So when you're describing the situations of what magazines they read, where they shop, that is also context, which is what we were just saying, that builds familiarity between both of them. And Jacqueline saying, she agrees the use of avatars, she uses the word soul client, and that's very much in your area, Jacqueline, of, your area of expertise, and your network would definitely be around that. And she loves pomegranate seeds. So the first thing we're talking about is make a note of all the frequently asked questions and the themes, the topics that are coming out, and tally them to see level of popularity. Secondly, really make use of language and terminologies and scenarios that they're using to describe how they're currently feeling, what situations they're currently in. And then the last one is when people are asking questions in forums and groups and saying, can anyone help me with this? Like, for example, what's the best CRM system to use? Make a note of what other people are suggesting as the solutions. So what are people saying about what are the CRM systems that they would suggest you use, or the resources by other members that are contributing? Because the really important thing there is they are telling you who your competitors are. They are telling you what you should be positioning yourself against or with in the marketplace that you're in, so you can work out how you're different, okay? So once you've got all this information, as I said, from those three things as part of your active listening, you're listening for those three elements, we want you to then develop your business by then using them. And this is exactly the stage that Rishi's at the moment. So he's used the popular frequently asked questions to creating a lead magnet that basically gets their attention, right? They are Googling what the questions for these answers. So if you can put something out there that's answering that question, you've immediately gone straight to their reticulating activating system, if you want to get technical on it, and go straight to what they're focusing their attention on and giving them something of value and bringing them over to their world, your world. So you can bring them over from another group through the lead magnet and then start nurturing them through your user journey and your framework, which is exactly where Rishi's at. We then want you to convert those languages and scenarios into your sales pages, into your emails, and into your content titles. So the titles of your blogs, your podcasts, your Facebook Lives. Because again, remember, they're going to catch that attention. It's what they're looking for right now. And it's using language they're familiar with, not jargon and technical terms. And then when we've got that SWOT analysis, as I always call it, is actually you're comparing yourself against all the other things that are on the market and going, what makes me different? What should I be charging in comparison to what other people are charging? What are they offering that I'm offering something more of? And that's actually what I should be putting more marketing attention, because this is why I stand out in comparison to what else is out there on the market. So use the resources and what's already out there as creating a SWOT analysis. And we've done this in lots of trainings before, of actually working out your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats against what's out there finally. And the last thing I want to do before I'm going to hand over to Helena, who's going to talk more about active listening in a communication style way, is actually giving you 4 resources of where you can be hanging out to do market research, to be active listening. So the first one is, obviously, we're on Facebook. You're in a Facebook group, potentially in the Connection Hub. So Facebook groups are great places where you can actually search for keywords of your ideal avatar. So you might put female entrepreneurs, see what groups come up with female entrepreneurs, join a couple of them, and just hang out on them on a regular basis and listen. You can use forums like Quora.com. I'll put the links in after when Helena starts chatting. And that's a great place where it's actually where it's a forum. So people ask questions and you can put responses in there. So again, you can put your responses in there and get it seen by lots of people, but it's a great way of actually doing some research and some underground digging of what people are asking for.
For sure.
You've also got the content site. So what's the most read content and titles at the moment? We love buzzsumo.com for that, where you can see what's the most popular blogs at the moment on keywords. And again, do your research there. And then the final one for SEO, to see what people are Googling for titles and questions on Google, is answerthepublic.com. So have a look on there and you can see, you put one keyword or a phrase in and you can see all the answers and all the things that people are asking around that key phrase or that keyword. And it's a great way for you to start your research. And I think I've heard Cora or Reddit have no idea the best how to best use them. So just explore. We got to get to know your keywords and put them in and start seeing what comes up.
Yeah, and it's a really fun exploration when you first actually do that, because you're simply doing learning and listening, and that's a really great thing to do. I'm going to take a slightly different tack as such. I'm going to actually talk more about what what active listening does in terms of you building relationships in some way. So, are you popping all the links in?
Yeah, you're very quiet though, Helena. You might have to shout.
I'm trying not to be quiet because I think I'm still looping through yours. So I'm just going to listen to myself and listen to this as well. So we'll just kind of play with this. So I'm going to talk to you about active listening, and please feel free to give me some. I'm echoing. Yeah. Okay, Kelly, would you mind just popping yourself off for a second, because I think I am looping back through yours. Quiet here, Kelly's shouting. Okay, so that's an interesting one. So let us know what the feedback is on that one, whether that's actually doing anything or not. I'm just gonna continue talking until you give me some feedback, and we'll just go from there. Or Kelly, come back and feel free to just kind of link in, and we'll
I'm on mute, but I'll take myself off. You just carry on talking. I mean, Jacqueline's saying
we'll just keep on going. No difference here. Okay, good. So I'm just going to go with it and talk that a little bit louder into this. So another way. Okay, right. I'm just going to talk a teeny bit louder, but not actually kind of have it popping and echoing, and we'll just go from there. Good. All right. Thanks, Patricia. Right. Okay, good. And we're back to it. So that was kind of your breathing break for a moment. And part of this is exactly what active listening is. Like, we could have absolutely continued at that point, but if you know that something is going to be irritant to people, that's going to spoil a relationship even in that way. So the echo has actually stopped. So that's an interesting bit of feedback as well. So I want to talk more about wearing a coaching hat that actively works. So your style when you're speaking to people, the way that you develop relationships, is communication based. If you think about active listening, it is a part of building relationships, building rapport, that connection and trust that you actually have. And those connections are the things that support you and your business in progressing. So whether it's inside a coaching relationship, um, also see you listening to listen or listen to just respond. Right, exactly. That's exactly how it works. So whether it's inside a coaching relationship, or whether it's speaking to people who are about to book you, or having a conversation with partners or venues even that you are wanting to book, because hey, we can do that nowadays. Hopefully that will continue in the world. All of those are conversations in which, if you apply active listening rather than simply going in to do some comparative listening or some I want to get that stuff, you're going to build a better relationship. And that actively allows you to really get the most out of that relationships, because most of these things are not just one-off conversations. They are conversations that you want to repeat over and over again, or build a deeper and deeper relationship. So I just want to talk about a few things that you can do to really support you and help you do that. Because, for the coaches among here, I don't want to teach you to suck eggs. There are many, many techniques for active listening. And as we said at the very beginning, there might actually just be, excuse me, there might actually just be some things that you've forgotten. I don't know about you, but when you've learned a technique and then somebody reminds you of it, you go, oh my goodness me, I've just let go of that. So we want to highlight some of those for you, because it's really easy to fall into a rut of listening that you actually actively do. You might actually seek to understand as part of your listening as a regular thing, but you might actually just have a very surface level conversation with a lot of people where you don't do active listening. So we want to really help you get that little bit deeper into the person that you're talking to. So in an always be coaching kind of way, we're inviting you to treat most conversations that you have as coaching led conversations. Go figure, because you can actively really deepen the connection and make that a much faster thing. So the first thing to really tackle around that is, so I'm going to tackle two kind of areas. The first thing is really the way in which you listen. And by that, what I mean is bringing your whole self to the conversation that you're having. It involves you actually getting clean and clear before you speak to someone. So the conversation actually starts, your communication starts before you get into a meeting, before you hit that go live on Zoom bit, or go live on StreamYard, for example, or indeed before you pick up the phone. What if you actively took a moment to simply just take a breath? And that's one of the best ways you can do it. What is my intention for this call? What is my intention for this coaching session? What is my intention for this conversation about whatever it is you're about to have a conversation about? It helps you, taking that breath helps you to just leave behind what was happening 5 minutes ago, and lets you get present before you actively step into this next conversation or communication. That does two things. One, it brings a calm and a peace to you. It allows you to gather yourself up, but it also allows you to arrive cleanly to hear how somebody else is. So all those nonverbals that you get, maybe they've had a really stressful morning. If you arrive stressed and they arrive stressed or preoccupied, maybe not even stressed, just preoccupied or still in the thing that they were in, the conversation doesn't have as much opportunity to feel connected. And that's really important. As Jacqueline's just said, it gets you out of your own way. So it doesn't take very long to just go and then begin again. And that's really what we're inviting you to do. So that's part of active listening, is actually you being in the right state. Go for it.
I've just unmuted myself for a second because it just reminded me. So I'm in part of quite a few like spiritual circles, and actually one of those things that when you have the talking stick as such, and what you do is that you come to the meeting and actually you state how are you feeling, and then you actually unpack the bag so everybody comes on board, but nobody else says anything while you're talking until you pass the stick on. And that's sort of what you're saying about arriving, isn't it?
For sure, for sure. It has that quality of you simply being present with another's presence. So being present with another's presence, and you just feeling into, dare I say that word, or thinking about how is this person showing up? How is it for them to be there? And in any rapport building that you're doing, that first 5 minutes absolutely should be given over to you both arriving. And by both, I mean the parties that you are listening to, as well as you are in there. So that's one thing. Understanding your intentions. I'm obviously going to talk about intentions around this. So, what is your intention for this conversation? You will have something that you want to get out of this communication. They will have something that they want to get out of this communication. And understanding comes from active listening. As Kelly said earlier, we use active listening for a purpose. We're finding out something, we're searching for something, we're seeking for something. But when you're using more of a coaching style around active listening, we're looking to connect first and foremost. So when Kelly was talking about kind of the marketing element of it, it's more about finding out, so receiving and gathering in this more connected way. We're actually looking at how we give from this space. Active listening is a really great way of giving, and a lot of people don't do it. Most people have surface level conversations. So by the very nature of you actively listening in a conversation, you give people some space, and they remember who you be and how they feel as they're receiving your communication, and that actively allows you to go a little bit deeper, go a little bit further, get a little bit of an extra deal. Like, I am very good at negotiating because I seek first in a conversation to actively listen to a person for what they are wanting, so that we in the conversation can come together in agreement, for example. So I'm very good at negotiating because I actively listen. I know that sounds like a strange thing, but if you really think that through, it actively works to listen a little bit more. A lot of active listening is really about reflecting. Once you get into a conversation, it's then about hearing and reflecting. So the version that Kelly was talking about in this is you reflect that information in the copy that you write, in the lead magnets that you put in a conversation. You're actually going to reflect it back. And that might be a really simple reflection around, oh, so you're saying that I can have X, Y, Z. So I'm on venues. Can you tell I've been doing some research? So I'm going to use what I know. So you might say, okay, so I can have this room for this many hours at this price. That's a reflective listening piece. You're simply establishing something very simple that they can agree with, but it allows somebody to feel acknowledged and heard for what they're doing. Now imagine that not as a practical thing, but as something that they're doing on an emotional level, and or simply they're stating where they're at, like Kelly was saying with the talking stick earlier. It allows someone to really feel connected. Hold on.
I'm just going to say while you're doing this, so Fahana's saying this
Please.
may sound silly, but could you do another session on this, but as a demo of how you do this?
I absolutely can. I absolutely can. So
Acting it
sorry.
out. Maybe we could do that in Changemaker Central.
I was thinking that that's actually what I would really like to do. So we can absolutely do this, because obviously I can talk about this for hours and hours, and I'm not going to. So you can also, so reflection, mirroring, if you like, what someone is saying, is you actively listening in the conversation without thinking about what your answer is going to be. It's simply about receiving the person and thinking, pausing for long enough, being brave enough to pause. Oh my word, people, being brave enough to pause. And you might find that somebody isn't aware that you're doing active listening. So they then continue and fill the space, and be okay with that. So I'm just going to say that when you do active listening, you end up doing less talking. That as a very thing helps people to do more talking, and you can receive them even more. There will be a space for you to then reflect back and acknowledge where they're at, and that's where you can take the conversation that little bit deeper, and simply start to notice even more in the conversation. It isn't about agendas. It isn't about you agreeing. It isn't about you getting agreement even. What if you walked into a conversation simply to listen rather than colluding, agreeing, or venting and having something else? Oh my God, filling awkward spaces is one of my issues. And so, okay, great. So if that's one of your issues, what a great technique that you can do is to count down from three. 3, 2, 1, or 5. That's a stretch for some, but 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I'll say what I'm going to say. Because actually, just leaving that gap may just allow someone to finish what they're saying before moving on in some way. So you've got this idea of listening versus agreeing. So if you find yourself doing some, I need to fill the space, or I need to be in agreement and share that, you may not need to. You could just listen. So that's part of active listening. Another thing around that is you can actively start to pick out, are they talking about content, and am I responding to the content, or am I responding to the emotion behind that content? So somebody might be really excited, like Jacqueline was really excited. The buzz in my business is growth right now. So you could actually respond. Part of active listening is wow, that must be so exciting for you. So you're responding to the emotional content that she's bringing rather than the content of the growth of your business. Oh, how are you doing that? So you can take the conversation into different areas, and that's going to lead you into different types of conversation. So the final bit around that is, and this is where Kelly and I are a perfect demonstration. Are you talking to the head, or are you talking to the heart? So when we actually did this Facebook Live, which is possibly feeling very different to some of you who are used to watching us, Kelly's done one chunk at the start, I've done a chunk here at the end, which is more around how you might actually use the same thing. We're coming at the same thing but using it for different purposes, and we're coming at it from a head and a heart perspective. So just using the content and the context can help you go, okay, so am I responding from an emotional space, or am I responding from a head space? You can come from both. And in your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 kind of thing, you could go, where should I respond from? That might be the tiny question that you might actually have inside you that allows you to, again, have that connection. If the intention of your conversation and communication is connection, I promise, absolutely promise, hand on heart, that you will have a much better experience, and they will have a better experience, and they will remember you. And that's really the key here. So I'm going to summarize that and give you 3 A's, just 3 A's to remember for doing your active listening, whether you're doing it for market research purposes or whether you're doing it in conversational purpose in this way. So the first one is have the attitude. The attitude of active listening is really about, if you come from an attitude of, everybody deserves respect, everybody's opinion is valid, there is something of value in here, I can stay curious. That might even be the little mantra. Hey, stay curious. If you're getting a little bit boredom or something along those lines, you go, okay, great. Stay open and relaxed. Keep open and relaxed. I can learn from this person. It's okay to not know what I'm going to say next. Just be in responsiveness. And if you catch yourself in the planning what to say next, take a breath and restart your active listening. So having that attitude of openness and curiosity and respect actively puts you in an active listening, puts you in an active listening state straight away. So that's attitude. The second piece, I would invite you to really do your attention. And so for some of you, and I think this is called 21st century living, we are distracted. We expect things to ping and move and do their own thing. And if you are actively listening, suddenly people will start to slow down a little because they're feeling listened to. That's going to mean that there will be more spaces. And that's going to mean that you might actually do a different level of concentration. You may need to pay attention in a very different way. You can listen to the words, you can actively really just pay attention to the whole of their bodies. Is what they're saying coming out of their mouths the same thing as what's showing up in their body? You can start to listen at a different level by paying attention in this way. And little tip from me, if you are someone who drifts off or is getting bored or kind of distracted in some way, start to do some concentrating mind games. finish a whole crossword. Actively do something that starts to develop your concentration, because we're all losing the
Not
power of
while you're coaching.
concentration. Not while you're coaching, obviously. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, no Candy Crush for Kelly in this moment, which is kind of how it works. And I get that it's going to be harder for some of you. For some of you, it might be redeveloping the concentration elements that allow you to stay present. And the way to do it is, as I said before, if you take a breath and just bring yourself back to the breath and simply allow yourself to be present with the person, you'll go back into that attention, because that will help you do that. So the right attitude, paying attention, and then this adjustment ease point. I'll let you read out what Andrew said in a second. I'll finish this one off. So this whole idea of, as you are doing your active listening, really going with the flow, adjusting yourself, and being at ease with adjusting yourself to listening in a different way, going with the flow, not making any assumptions, not adjusting where they're going with what they're saying, but that whole listening with curiosity may well get you to a space where the deep connection actually is present. So Kelly, what's Andrew saying?
Yeah, I'm loving what Andrew's saying. So I work in a global mobility, and my biggest audience is on LinkedIn. Quite often my target audience asks questions on LinkedIn, and then what he sees is all of the competition starts answering, and that's another story, or offering their services in response. What he does is he listens, and then he sends a letter in the post to their offices, explaining the reason, what he imagines they're a bit overwhelmed with all the responses on LinkedIn, and ask if they may have a call to fully understand their needs, and that really works for him. So not only is that a demonstration of putting active listening into practice, but also it's your USP. You're standing out. You're doing things differently, because everyone's just going, these are all the responses, and the person goes, I don't know where to start. And you cut through that with a letter and go, this is where I sit with all the responses that you've got, and this is where my SWOT analysis, and would you like to have a one-to-one call? It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, Andrew.
And the extra layer of that I really love is that actually that conversation happened in the moment, but because you've sent a letter, it happens another couple of days later, which reminds the person that they were listened to and allows you to still stand out, because it's not that they haven't still got that issue, it's just that most people have moved on from that, but you've arrived in their inbox 2 days later, or in their post box 2 days later, and that actively will help them go, wow, I feel
But
listened to and acknowledged.
and that extra level of care, isn't it? Because yes, we can all go, as I was saying about the market research, and actually you could be one of those people that puts the responses in and has that, but that's very much slam dunk, here's your answer, off I go again.
Yeah.
When what you're doing, Andrew, is actually making them feel heard, having a real contemplative response that you've given, which actually then has that slow down of energy, that lack of distraction, that being really present, which is what active listening is all about.
Yeah. So don't be scared to slow down, is what we're really saying here. So, working on, you may actually find out of those 3 A's, is it your attitude when you're active listening that you need to work on? Is it your attention, your concentration levels? Or is it actually this whole kind of piece around jumping in, or, as we've just been talking about, or making assumptions about how you can fit what you've got into what they do, or what you know into what they do, rather than having this adjustment piece where you go, oh, that's where they've just gone. How interesting. That goes in there. So from this perspective, overarching, whether you're using active listening to do the market research piece, to do all of the creation pieces that we're doing, or indeed to build rapport and trust with another, really the biggest thing here that we're suggesting is that you connect with yourself in order to connect with another, which involves honestly, if you could set an alarm every hour or so to just empty yourself out for 2 or 3 minutes, to empty yourself out at the end of a task that you're doing before going into a new situation or a new task that needs you to listen or do things in a different way, that's going to really support you in arriving clean, whether that's a sales call, a coaching call. Attitude, attention, and adjustment. So that whole kind of the temptation to adjust that we've actually got, just so that you've got that.
And doing something like you said, like, a lot of us are working from home at the moment. So just having something like one of those mini trampolines there that you just do a 5-minute bounce after every type of activity.
Like
there you go, one of those on the floor there. And that's because, movement is a great way of shifting energy and actually clearing stuff out. So think about what you can do. Go outside for a walk for a few minutes. But that shift of energy is really important rather than just sitting in back-to-back phone calls or Zoom calls or whatever and bringing the energy from one meeting to the next meeting.
Yeah. So getting really clear, getting intentional about listening is going to get you, is half the win here. So whether you are doing it, as we say, from a creation perspective, from a listening to what the avatar's doing, and the marketing led perspective, or just from this connection piece, the biggest thing that you can do is set yourself up to do it so that you gain from the time that you're taking to actively listen. I'm just saying that's so what I need. Add movement into my routine. Fantastic. And it is just such a great way of punctuating. I think in our days today, we need to punctuate with either different conversations and or movement as we go, or indeed on a day like today, getting out in the sunshine for 2 minutes and just resetting in the sun would be a really good thing as well. So let us know, we would love to know how you are using active listening to develop your business, either what you're doing right now, as Andrew just did, and or, and share with us the things that you're doing, or what you're going to put into practice from this that allows you to do a little bit more in your business and progress it, because that's why we're all here. Oh, she's letting me say do the goodbye bits, which is really great. So I'm going to bid you a really good rest of your day, evening, whenever you're listening. Remember to do a hashtag replay, and we will catch you next Tuesday for another live.